Welcome back, Intimacy Unlocked fans. It's so good to be back with you. Another year, another opportunity to wade into the messy, beautiful world of human connection together. Because, let's face it, relationships are hard. They're messy, complicated, and exhilarating all at the same time. But that's what makes this work so important, right? We're all in this together. Isn't finding love and happiness often seen as life's ultimate goal? So many of us believe that meaningful relationships are the foundation of true happiness. And you know what? The research actually backs that up. The quality of our relationships significantly impacts our overall well-being. But here's the catch. Even when we crave connection, fear can make us slam the brakes on building it. Opening your heart and being emotionally vulnerable takes courage. For those with a history of relationships that didn't go the way we hoped or childhoods that taught us to armor up, the fear of intimacy makes a whole lot of sense. But here's the thing. This fear can lead to pushing away the very people we care about most, sometimes without even realizing it. We hesitate, we question our relationships, and sometimes we miss out on the chance to build the deep connections we long for. So, let's explore 7 signs that you might be struggling with a fear of intimacy and how it could be affecting your relationships. Let's talk about fear of abandonment. This one runs deep, you know. This fear of intimacy often comes from unresolved abandonment issues that often stem from early childhood experiences, especially if we grew up with parents or caregivers who were emotionally unavailable or neglectful. And let's be honest, a lot of us had experiences like that. Growing up in those environments often leads to an anxious avoidant attachment style, which basically means we learn to protect ourselves by keeping people at arm's length. When we carry the weight of those early experiences, it's easy to fall into the trap of believing we can only depend on ourselves. We start to see trusting others as risky, even dangerous. That fear might lead you to avoid commitment altogether, or even worse, to end relationships preemptively before you experience the pain of being left behind. It's like we'd rather be the ones to walk away than to risk being the ones left standing there alone. And believe me, I get it. Putting your heart out there, allowing yourself to be vulnerable and open to love, it takes courage. It means facing the possibility of being hurt again. But the thing is, that fear of abandonment, it can keep us locked in a cycle of superficial connections. So if you find yourself constantly bracing for the other shoe to drop, always expecting things to go wrong, it might be time to take a closer look at the roots of that fear. Because you deserve to experience the kind of love that's built on trust, on vulnerability, on the freedom to be your authentic self without the constant dread of abandonment. Now let's talk about fierce independence. Don't get me wrong, independence is a good thing. It's about knowing your worth, standing on your own 2 feet. But sometimes our need for independence can become a barricade, keeping everyone else on the other side. Here's the thing, extreme self-reliance can be a sign that we're terrified of intimacy. Think about it. If you never ask for help, if you never let anyone see your struggles, if you're always pushing people away by saying, "I've got this," even when you're drowning, it's really hard for anyone to get close. And honestly, it's exhausting trying to be that self-sufficient all the time. The truth is, asking for help, letting people see our imperfections, our vulnerabilities, that's not weakness, it's courage. It's letting people into the messy, beautiful reality of our lives. And when we do that, we open the door to true connection, to the kind of intimacy that allows us to feel seen, heard, and loved for who we truly are. Yes, independence can give you a sense of control, but it can also create emotional distance in your relationships. It's like you're saying, "I don't need anyone, I can do this all by myself." And while that may feel safe, it also prevents you from experiencing the joy and support that comes with letting someone truly in. So how do we find that balance? How do we embrace independence without letting it become a wall that keeps everyone else out? It starts with small steps. The next time you need help, try asking for it. The next time you're struggling, try sharing it with someone you trust. It might be uncomfortable at first, but I promise you the rewards are worth it. Okay, let's talk about patterns, specifically the pattern of falling for emotionally unavailable partners. Have you ever noticed that you're drawn to people who are emotionally distant or who are just straight up unavailable? It's like we have a radar for it, right? If this resonates with you, it's time to get curious about what's really going on, because here's the thing, choosing the wrong person again and again can be a subconscious way of avoiding intimacy. Think about it. If you fall for someone who's emotionally unavailable, you never have to fully open up. You never have to face the risk of true intimacy, because the relationship is wired for distance from the very beginning. It's like we're setting ourselves up for a love that's always just out of reach. And the reason we do this, fear of getting hurt, fear of being vulnerable, fear of what might happen if we actually let someone in and they don't like what they see. So, if you find yourself stuck in this pattern, it's time to get real with yourself about why you're choosing these partners. What is it about emotional unavailability that feels familiar, even safe? What are you avoiding by not allowing yourself to be with someone who can truly meet you on an emotional level? This is hard work, you guys. It's about breaking down those old patterns, those defenses we've built up around our hearts. But I promise you, it's worth it. Because you deserve to be with someone who's not only available, but who's also excited to be with you, all of you. Chapter 4, Flaky Behavior. Let's talk about flakiness. And no, I'm not talking about missing a lunch date because you got stuck at work. I'm talking about the kind of flakiness that shows up when things start to get real, when intimacy starts knocking at the door. Have you ever ghosted someone after feeling a real connection? Or maybe you've pulled back after sharing something deeply personal. This kind of inconsistency, this withdrawing after moments of emotional vulnerability, it's a classic sign of discomfort with intimacy. Look, I get it. When we let someone see the real us, it can feel terrifying. What if they don't like what they see? What if they judge us, reject us, leave us? So we flake. We disappear, we find ways to sabotage the very connection we long for. But here's the thing about vulnerability. It's the foundation of intimacy. It's the willingness to show up as our authentic selves, imperfections and all. And the more we try to outrun it, the more we try to protect ourselves from it, the more we miss out on the beauty of true connection. So if you recognize yourself in this pattern of flakiness, if you know you're guilty of pulling back just when things start to get good, it's time to ask yourself why. What are you really afraid of? And more importantly, what would it look like to start choosing courage over comfort? To start showing up even when it's scary? Chapter 5, Perfectionism. Okay, let's talk about perfectionism. Because here's the thing, perfectionism isn't really about being perfect, it's about earning approval, about armoring ourselves against shame and judgment. And it can be a huge barrier to intimacy. Think about it. If you're always trying to present a perfect image, if you're terrified of letting anyone see your flaws, your mistakes, your struggles, how can anyone truly know you? How can anyone love you for who you really are? The truth is, vulnerability is the birthplace of connection. It's the willingness to take off the mask, to let someone see the real us, even the parts we're not so proud of. And when we hide behind perfectionism, we rob ourselves of the opportunity to experience that kind of deep, authentic connection. So, how do we break free from the grip of perfectionism? It starts with recognizing that it's a lie. It's a story we tell ourselves to stay safe, to avoid vulnerability. But the truth is, our imperfections, our struggles, they don't make us unworthy of love. They make us human. So let's give ourselves permission to be messy, to be imperfect, to be real. Because that's where the magic happens. That's where true intimacy is born. Chapter 6. Workaholism. Now let's talk about workaholism. And again, I'm not talking about being passionate about your work. I'm talking about using work as a shield, as a way to avoid intimacy and emotional connection. Here's the thing. When we pour all of our energy into our careers, when we're constantly on and never fully present in our personal lives, we're sending a clear message. I'm not available. And the truth is, it's a lot easier to lose ourselves in a spreadsheet or a project than it is to face the messy, beautiful reality of human connection. And now, there's nothing wrong with being ambitious, with wanting to make a difference in the world through your work. But when work becomes an escape from intimacy, when it becomes the thing we hide behind to avoid dealing with our emotions and our relationships, it's time to take a step back and ask ourselves what we're really running from. Because Here's the thing, we can have both. We can have fulfilling careers and meaningful relationships, but it takes intention. It takes setting boundaries. It takes making time for the people we love, even when our to-do lists are a mile long. Because at the end of the day, when we're old and grey and looking back on our lives, it's not going to be the hours we logged at the office that matter most. It's going to be the quality of our connections, the love we shared, the memories we made with the people who mattered most. Chapter 7, Self-Sabotage in Relationships. And finally, let's talk about self-sabotage in relationships. This one is painful because it's often driven by a subconscious fear of intimacy. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy where we unconsciously create the very outcomes we fear the most. Think about it. Have you ever pushed away a partner just when things were going well? Or maybe you've picked fights, withheld affection, or even engaged in infidelity as a way to create distance in your relationship. These behaviors, as painful as they are, often stem from a deep-seated fear of vulnerability. Here's the thing. When we're terrified of intimacy, when we believe we're not worthy of love or that we're destined to be hurt, we unconsciously find ways to make those beliefs come true. It's like a defense mechanism, a way to protect ourselves from the potential pain of true connection. But here's the truth. We are worthy of love. We are capable of experiencing deep, meaningful connections. But it starts with recognizing our patterns of self-sabotage and making a conscious choice to break free from them. It's not easy work. It takes courage to confront our fears, to challenge our limiting beliefs, and to start showing up in our relationships in a way that's authentic and vulnerable. But I promise you, it's worth it. Because the rewards of true intimacy, of feeling seen, heard, and loved for who we truly are, far outweigh the fear of getting hurt. Outro. Overcoming the fear of intimacy is a journey, not a destination. And the truth is, it's not something we do once and then we're done. It's an ongoing practice, a commitment to showing up in our relationships with courage and vulnerability, even when it's scary. While fear of intimacy can hinder our happiness, change is possible. Those painful past experiences, those heartbreaks that left us reeling, they don't have to define our future. With effort and support, with compassion for ourselves and for others, we can break those old patterns and build the healthy, fulfilling relationships we long for. Recognizing the signs of fear is the first step. So did any of these resonate with you? Are you ready to confront your fears and commit to positive change? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to share this video with someone who might benefit. And as always, thanks for watching.